We just don't get taught how to listen to our body and take care of ourselves. It was suck it up and keep going and push through. I pushed through and sucked it up, and I hit a wall. I had all these protective patterns that kept me feeling safe by putting these masks on and overriding what was really going on underneath. One of my favorite jokes is trauma is like farts, because if you hold it in, it hurts. And if you let it out too quick, it'll clear a room. We want to do little bits at a time.
You are listening to the Ockery Podcast, a show about men and masculinities, the challenges that modern men face, and how to chart a better way forward. I'm your host, Matt Howlett, mental health coach and founder of the Ockery. My guest for this episode is Mitch Webb, a nervous system coach and holistic healing guide who helps people heal from chronic stress and trauma by reconnecting with their bodies. He blends science, somatics, and personal experience to help others feel safe, grounded, and alive. The conversation centers around the importance of being connected to your physical and emotional experience as a man, the benefits of that connection and how we can do that, as well as the negative impacts on our overall health when we try to force the more traditional stoic approach of pushing through the pain and pushing down the emotions. There's no denying that our physical health is intricately connected to our mental and spiritual health, and this episode will introduce you to several ideas and practical steps for renewing that connection and working towards a more holistic approach to overall health. Now, here is the conversation with Mitch Webb. All right, we got Mitch Webb on the podcast today. Thank you so much, Mitch, for joining us.
Yeah, Matt, thank you so much for having me, man. And I appreciate the opportunity to share and talk about mental wellness and how, we can apply that to spaces that men are in. So, yeah, man, my journey, I'm a health and wellness and nervous system coach. And, it started with my own health journey. And I was more of a corporate sales guy there for a while, but let me take you back even further than that. When I was 20 years old, I was traveling in Europe. I fell out of a second-story window. It was the World Cup. We were partying. Traumatic brain injury. Not too much long concussion, So I started having panic attacks. Started having insomnia. I didn't even know what the panic attack was. Like, it was just not who I was. It's very dysregulating. And so they give me some medication. They send me on my way. I'm in college at the time. The medication got me through college. So broke out in autoimmune disease. So that's a very common post-traumatic stress kind of thing. Plaque psoriasis over my entire body. So along with the medication, I got a immune suppressant and I just kind of went about my way. And out of college, started working with my family business, working in the corporate world, lots more stress. We moved into a house that had black mold in it, and without me knowing, obviously. Yeah. And, you were talking about a 200-year-old house before we got on. This was probably a 100-year-old house. It's something we were renting, and developed Lyme disease because of that.
Wow.
And, very debilitating. The symptoms are very similar. But to give you an idea, I would have joint pain all the time, brain fog. I'd get lost driving in my hometown, and didn't know what was going on. It was very slow. Met a doctor that luckily was functional medicine, and they took a full history on me. I thought I had a drug problem because I was looking for things to help me sleep, like Xanax, that kind of thing. And we eventually found the mold. We found the Lyme disease, found out that I was some metabolic issues, so like borderline diabetes going on. Worked with a really great doctor and reversed all that. And I fell in love with, health and wellness at the time. It was kind of more of a biohacking approach. I was finding ways to hack my health and do these little shortcuts, and I thought I was cracking the code doing that. Eventually that came back to bite me, but I left the corporate world, started health coaching, and one of my first clients that I was going to go see, I got hit by a dump truck. So it totaled my car and killed my dog. It was horrible. Post-concussion syndrome for like a year. After going through all that shit and getting my life back and ready to help people, I had to go right back into the dark night of the soul, which I've had many of those. And so a year goes by, I'm finally feeling better. And one of my first workouts back at the gym, It was 2020. Guy comes into the sauna, hacking up a lung, had been traveling all over the world. I got COVID, right? And
Wow.
COVID wasn't a big deal, as in like the symptoms and getting over it. I got the long haul stuff. And so I didn't just get long haul COVID one time. I got it 3 times. It lasted for 3 years. And so that looks like I went down to 140 pounds. I'm 190, 195 now. I could eat maybe one time a day, had massive fatigue combined with lots of anxiety. It felt like terror would be the emotion. And, had some really good help from some doctors at that time and made some improvements. But the big improvement came when we had a men's group here that a couple of guys and I started. And I was reading, The Body Keeps the Score, learning a little bit about trauma. I flipped past the childhood trauma part. I'm like, there's no way I can even look at that stuff. Like, I felt shame for even considering that my childhood could have been traumatic. And the way I answered a question in the group, one of the guys pulled me aside and said, "Hey, man, you reading that book, Body Keeps the Score, the guy's trauma?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "That's you, dude. The way you answered that question about your dad, like, ding, 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 you win the golden prize. Let me help you out." And so found my way to some therapists, found my mentor that I was sharing, Irene Lyon.
Yep.
Started, just devoured that information. And within like the first 3 months, I went from eating 1 meal a day to eating multiple meals a day. I started reversing my food sensitivities, got my energy back, got back in the gym, sleeping better, feeling better. I mean, it changed my life. Now, I'm 3 years at this point doing this work, working one-on-one, starting to work with clients, and just embodying this work as much as I can, making it a lifestyle like I do. And it's the greatest thing that I ever. It's the glue that brings everything else together, because now I'm doing it my way. I'm listening to my body instead of relying on everybody else to heal me or fix me or whatever.
Yeah. I'm curious what it will, in the reflection, in the work that you've done to get to where you're at, what did you recognize about yourself that kept you from getting to the place where you are now? And that might sound a little bit confusing, but what I'm trying to get at is the barriers that we have in place in our that we put in place as men in our lives to keep us from feeling, to keep us from being connected to our bodies, to keep us from, kind of reflecting on the past. Because sometimes, we have to do that. We don't always have to be, reflecting on some past incident. But like you just mentioned, there are parts of our lives that are traumatic, whether we admit to them or not, whether we realize it in the moment or not. But we tend to stay away from that. I would say the majority of men, that's at least the rhetoric that I see online, especially when I'm posting content or dealing with other clients in the same space. You get a lot of feedback from just people online saying that, "Guy, that's not manly. Don't do that." What did you see about yourself that was active? I guess ways of thinking, ways of living, ways of being that kept you away from that type of work?
It was a language that I was not familiar with at all. There was no emotional wellness in my family. It was the exact opposite. A lot of narcissism, a lot of emotional immaturity, a lot of, suck it up and don't be a bitch and don't tell anybody about that. And you're weak and you're going to make us look bad. A lot of perfectionism, a lot of people pleasing,
right.
A lot of black or white thinking, all or nothing. I had all these protective patterns that kept me feeling safe by, controlling a situation, by putting these masks on and overriding what was really going on underneath. And it got to the point where I had so much sensation and emotion in my body that I didn't know what the hell it meant. And I really had this belief that something was wrong with me. And that comes from childhood. That's toxic shame. It says, what's the difference between guilt and shame? Guilt is I did something bad. Shame is I am bad. Something's wrong with me.
Right.
So that underlying dysregulation and lack of attunement, lack of emotional intelligence, or how to even communicate or listen to my body, communicate with other people, say how I'm feeling, I was a mess. I thought I was broken. I thought something was wrong with me. And I'd been sick for so long and had lots of evidence, but I didn't understand, this foundation that I didn't have. And I think, my parents, it's not like my parents were overtly abusive. It was just, it's a language that we didn't speak, and I think so many of us in today's culture, we just don't get taught how to listen to our body and take care of ourselves, and especially the emotional and the softer side of things. It was suck it up and keep going and push through. And brother, I pushed through and sucked it up and overrode and forced myself to feel good because I thought I was broken for so long that I couldn't do it anymore. And I hit a wall. Oftentimes when you're used to running through walls, that's when burnout happens. So, and like me, the men that I work with, a lot of men don't come to this work unless they have hit a rock bottom.
Yeah.
And I hit the rock bottom and bounce a couple times before, before I was willing to look at it. And it was I've been through everything, I feel like, in health and wellness. I tried everything. There's some things that brought great value to my life, but this was so out of my awareness that it was like, I feel like a little baby at almost 40 years old learning this stuff.
So what has been the most impactful thing for you? And can you say this stuff? Like what is the most impactful thing that has, that stands out to you right now?
Let me tell this story. So after a year of doing this, I remember telling my wife, like, hey, once you, especially as a coach, you can only meet someone as far as at the depth that you've met yourself.
Yep.
And I'm sure you get that. And so now that I can see these things, I like the saying, if I can see it, I don't have to be it. Right. So now I've been seeing it and I've been working through it, and then I can see it on everybody else. It's like going to a rave with glow paint and somebody turns the blue light on, like, oh shit, I can see everybody's stuff now. Right. And so I can see patterns in my wife, that same patterns that I had. And I'm like, hey, let's go to therapy together. Like, or you go to therapy, however you want to do it. I'll do it with you, do it on your own. Like, I really want to grow together. I want to do this work together. Like we've done with learning about nutrition, like we've done with exercise, like we've done with other mental approaches. And, and she looks at me and she goes, you are offending me. And I was like, what? I thought I'm being like the best husband on the planet right now. Like, all women want this, like, this man who's willing to be in their emotions. And I'm trying to get you to do this with me. But what I realized, she wasn't ready, And so a couple months later, she was. And this is something that changed, that's big for me. And I modeled it to her. And sidebar, what I'm saying here is you can't make anybody do this work.
Yeah.
I get that question all the time. If somebody's resistant, what do? You show them, you demonstrate what wellness is, and you hold space for them and be compassionate. And who knows, maybe one day they'll have an impulse to do it themselves. So my wife, we're having a conversation. I remember I came home from a hockey game and she's like, hey, I'm going to therapy tomorrow. And I was like, what? And I'm getting like emotional thinking about it, because she said, I can tell when we get in arguments, you don't blow up as much. And you're able to calmly tell me what you're feeling, where you're feeling it, what the emotion is, and what you need. And at the time, for her, and if she's hearing this, sorry, I'm talking about you, babe. Her at the time, she would get very emotional and she wouldn't be able to express herself. Kind of like that, like, cat's got your tongue thing. Like,
yep.
I can't interpret it. And so I just get overwhelmed and I shut down, and, we're kind of stuck. And so she said, hey, I want that for myself. And I was like, wow, that's awesome. So there's a million of those, but that's just the first one that came to mind.
What comes up with your clients specifically? Like, obviously you just mentioned that they probably are hitting rock bottom. That's maybe what's bringing them to you, but what has been the most impactful thing in your work with clients?
It's really just teaching them to be here now, teaching them to be aware, and to especially like the guy that's an entrepreneur or a business owner, or the guy I'm thinking about right now was like a hedge fund guy, right?
Sure.
Good old boy, made a bunch of money quick. When I say good old boy, just great character in a business developing land with a bunch of hawks, right? To get into this world, you earn it, and you got a bunch of power and money, right?
Mm.
But this is a good guy, right? He's not this power hungry, shisty dude, but he's around a bunch of sharks and doesn't know it. And so it started differently. People come to me because of pain, because of symptoms, because something that is nagging, that they've done everything and nothing's working, right? They've done the detoxes, they've done the diets, they've gone to therapy potentially, right? And they just have this thing. And this guy's thing was more mental, but what showed up on the first day we worked together was this pain in his neck.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, we did bench press or something. I have clients that I work with locally, mostly remote, but some locally, and we'll meet and do little things like that. And he couldn't lift a dumbbell over his head. And I'm like, he just winced in pain. I'm like, what is that? He's like, I got his shoulder. I can't remember his shoulder. I think it was his neck. And I said, how long have you been dealing with that? And he's like, 5 or 6 years. And I'm like, what? I'm like, dude, go see this chiropractor, go see this body worker, tell them this, and this, and like get that straightened out. And this is right when I started doing more nervous system and emotional wellness stuff. So I sent him on his way. 6 months later, I'd say we're hanging out by his pool. We're talking. We became really good buddies. And he's like, man, my shoulder. I'm like, how's your shoulder? He's like, I'm not going to the chiropractor anymore. It sucks. It hurts worse than when I started. It doesn't help me at all. And I'm like shocked, right? And I go, well, tell me more. And so we're talking, and he's like, man, I get home and I'm just so damn tired at the end of the day. I don't have time to do these walks that you want me to do. I'm like, I get that. But when he said that, he said, when I get home, and then people that are watching, not watching, I'm hiking my shoulders up to my ear like I'm carrying a bunch of weight, right? Yep. How many men are carrying a bunch of bullshit home at the end of the day, right? So it's textbook.
Yeah.
And so how often are you doing this thing, with your shoulders up? And he's like, I don't know. I'm like, well, can you feel that you're doing it right now? He's like, yeah. I was like, all right, so feel that tension that you're holding in your shoulders. If anybody's listening, they can do this right now too. Feel that tension. And yeah, you can let it go really quick. But what I want you to do is I want you to really feel that you're holding this tension. And I want you to let it go so slow that I can't see it, right? If I was watching you. And I want you to teach your body what it feels like to let go of that tension. And so we did that a couple of times. And, obviously he knew how to do that. I said, your homework this week, I want you to be aware of when those shoulders climb up your neck and tell me about it. I want you to get to know that like it's a friend. I want you to tell me every detail you can about it, right? And he comes back and he's all excited. He's like, oh man, I'm doing it all the time. I'm doing it in these meetings, and I got to get through these freaking meetings. And I'm like, what's going on in the meetings? Like, got these freaking assholes in there, and they just tell me all the stuff. I don't want to hear it. And they can last 2 or 3 hours, and it's just not productive. And blah, 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 blah. I'm like, where are you in the meeting? He's like, I'm putting my head down. I'm trying to get through it. And again, for those that are listening, my shoulders are up on my ears again. And so, and then he would let it go. Okay. And I'm like, okay, great. So you've learned, you've got some awareness of what's going on in the moment now. And so I said, you ready for your next step? And he's like, yeah. So I said, in these meetings, I want you to really feel your butt in the chair. I want you to stay there. I want you to stay in the room by feeling your butt in the chair. I want you to feel your back up against the backrest. And I want you to look around. I want you to feel your feet on the ground. I want you to notice what's going on with your breath. What's it doing? I don't want you to change it. I just want you to observe it. And then I want you to look around the room and find things that are interesting constantly. Use your senses. What are 5 things you can point out with your vision? What are 2 things that you can hear? Can you feel different textures, right? Can you bring awareness into the moment? Mm-hmm. I didn't hear back from him for 2 weeks. He comes back and he's like, I'm like, how'd it go? And brother, this is a guy that I said, hey, have you ever been to therapy? You ever thought about that? And he's like, hell no, I'm not doing that. I'll talk to you. And I'm like, all right. So I said, how'd it go? And I'm expecting crickets. And he's like, oh, dude, I fired 5 people. 2 of those people are no longer my friends. I got them out of my life. He's like, I got a new trajectory with my business. We're doing this. He's like, they were all wanting a piece of me. So what's going on there is this man, pain is trapped survival energy. That's trauma. That's something that was overwhelming, that we could not respond to. Fight, flight, free, or fight, flight, run away or fight, right? We didn't have the resources to deal with it. So we freeze.
Yep.
That is collapse. That stays in our system. And so this pain is repressed emotions. And so this lack of awareness is coming from avoiding the pain and avoiding these shitty people that he's around. But we bring awareness in, and now the pain went away, and he's responding to the environment instead of dragging himself through it.
Yeah.
Coming home every day.
Yeah. So we've got guys, well, specifically, that's generally what I try and talk to is you got fight, flight, freeze, or fawn.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're rooting for there. And if you're doing that over an extended period of time, then yeah, that's something that's going to be ingrained. It's going to be habitual, and it's going to be exactly what you just described in the guy that you're working with. What has been the feedback that you've received from these guys? Has it been generally like that, where it's like eye-opening and, you know, something that they once thought maybe less of, wanted to shy away from, didn't want to talk about, especially didn't want to go to therapy, but now they're like, oh my goodness, this is life-changing?
Oh yeah. And here's the thing with guys, I was talking to another person in my group this morning, like we get a bad rap for not doing the therapy. But what I say about men when they do decide to do it, that it is a little bit ambiguous. We like things in like sequential orders and like very specific. So we've got to learn that a little bit. But man, if they're committed and they do the work, they excel extremely fast. And it blows my mind. You know, for someone doing this for 2 years and learning this language and seeing the things that it took me 2 years, I didn't have a coach like this. And that's the benefit of a coach is it's just, you got more feedback. It's like, instead of trying to figure this thing out on my own, this language, it's like, I mean, can you imagine learning Spanish without a teacher?
Yeah, I'm doing it right now with Duolingo. And he's Duolingo, the little character is very upset with me because I haven't been there in a week.
But yeah, I mean, you got guys that, you know, show up on day one and they're so checked out and disconnected from their body.
Yeah.
You know, their vocal prosody, the way that their voice can go up and down, you know, they're talking very monotone and they're looking over here. And within like a month, you know, digestive stuff is a big one. For me, because we have so much activation, of course, your body's under threat, you know, and so it's just contorted, contracted, and that gets into your stomach. And so for me, you know, just like a lot of my clients, you could have diagnosed me with a different gut thing every week, you know, but if you tried to treat me with supplements and treatments, it backfired. You know, my system couldn't handle the supplements. And so with somebody like that, you know, we're going to hit it from multiple angles. We're going to work on the deep-seated emotional repression, the unprocessed trauma. We're going to build capacity in the nervous system and learn to regulate. At the same time, we're going to find a diet that's going to support you. A lot of times that looks like simplifying the diet, doing more of like a carnivorous approach, but not full. Most people don't need the full-on meat and salt, more like meat and fruit and root vegetables and you know, certain vegetables and things like that. Like we remove the more inflammatory foods so that the gut can get a break. It can heal as we heal. The problem is not the food. The problem is the inflammation and the constriction. You know, one thing that happens a lot in sessions is people burp, people fart.
In sessions.
Yeah. And that's the fascial adhesion, the fascial contractions coming out. You know, and one of my favorite jokes is trauma is like farts, because if you hold it in, it hurts, and if you let it out too quick, it'll clear a room. You know,
I can't say I've heard that before.
The moral of the story is We want to do little bits at a time. So like you come work with me, it's not like, hey man, we're jumping into trauma. It's like, no, we are doing tiny little bits, and we're going to focus on where you're at now, what's going on, what's the low hanging fruit, what's going to give you your biggest bang for the buck. And that means some guys come running in knowing they need to do emotional work, and they're ready, and maybe they've done Irene's courses. Those are my favorite because they have the language. And there's some guys that go, dude, I'm so overwhelmed, I can't sleep at night, and my skin's horrible, and I can't eat any food.
Yeah.
And so, we're gonna do some different approaches, and everybody's so individual, it has to be done that way.
Yeah, everybody's so individual, but the language is key. You have to know the words. You can't take ownership of something if you can't name it.
Yeah,
I would say. And that's especially true for men when it comes to the world of emotions. Women can jump into that so much easier, so much quicker, process that so much faster than we can. And we are, I would say, taught by society to not jump into that too much. And we have a very limited vocabulary when it comes to emotions. Before we get into anything else, I just want to let everybody know what that book is. I've read that. You've read that. You mentioned it. By Bessel van der Kolk is the author, doctor from the Netherlands, psychiatrist. The Body Keeps the Score. Great book. And it's very easy to read. Gives a lot of illustrations from his own practice. What specific practices do you see or do you work with when it comes to men that are coming to your clients?
Well, other than like the basics, so I'm going to just go over the basics real quick.
Sure.
I mean, we're talking like, and it's funny, I'm always surprised of how many people don't know the basics. The basics are going to be like hydration, eating hydration and minerals, eating real food, circadian health. Like, are you getting outside, right? Are you getting sun in your eyes in the morning? Are you blocking blue light at nighttime? Are you getting your bare feet on the ground and connecting with the earth? Are you connecting with nature, right? Environmental stuff in the house, like Wi-Fi can be a big problem. 5G stuff, turning your cell phone off at nighttime, turning your Wi-Fi off at nighttime, and then finding a diet that's conducive, that's good for you, and then workout that is not punishing. So many of us are, for me, I was using exercise as a way to give myself energy that was really more adrenaline and cortisol, because that's what was familiar growing up. And so if I didn't sleep, I do a hard workout and I, go sit in the sauna for an hour and then I'm, revving myself up and wondering why I can't sleep at nighttime. So given that all those things are good, or there may be a hybrid where we're doing some of that, well, now we're going to go into the emotional side of things and the nervous system really. And I'm focused on building capacity. So the analogy I like to give that I got from Irene is like a swimming pool, right? Swimming pool, that's your nervous system. And there's all these beach balls and floaties in there, right? And they're just kind of bouncing around and touching each other. And all of that is the sensation, the emotions, the symptoms that we're experiencing, right? Because it's overloaded. There's just too much in the nervous system for it to handle, right? So we're, kind of like we were talking, we're either really activated or we're shut down, and we're cycling between those. We're not in our, what we would call window of tolerance where we feel good. So I'm not focused on, especially in the beginning, going in and removing a beach ball, right? That would be, a trauma. That's overwhelming. When that happens, we have to have capacity on board to know how to rest, how to take care of ourselves. It can be very dysregulating. And so instead of being a surgeon, I'm trying to grow the size of that swimming pool. Just like in the gym, you want to build capacity to be able to go from squatting 135 pounds to 235 pounds. You're going to do that slowly over time, and you're going to grow your capacity. Same thing in the nervous system happens. Right now, I don't have the capacity to handle the intensity of things that are below my neck, right? That are in my body. So what do? I squeeze myself up into my head, and I think my way to safety. I stay in my head and I overthink. And that's where most of us live. And so I want to build the capacity. And eventually regulation, to where I'm not cycling between activation and shutdown. I'm staying more in a window of tolerance. And the tools and the modalities that we use are things like Feldenkrais. So Feldenkrais is a very slow form of movement. that is basically giving you an outlet or an input into the nervous system. So it allows you to move really slowly. And eventually, by building awareness with the body, it will start, as we feel safe, it will give us old patterns, old sensations, memories, images, behaviors, and we can make new meanings out of these, right? So that's felt in Christ. I love that even for post-workout as a way to bring tension out of the body. It's so crazy.
I've never heard of that.
It's amazing. Guys, guys listening, you're into working out, look it up. I used to be, as you get past 30, 40 years old, you train a little bit different. You got to kind of be able to do a little bit of body work, take care of yourself. And, cranking and stretching on a muscle, it's going to go right back. You may, at best, if nothing happens, at the worst, you hurt yourself. This is a neurosensory exercise. And it is fascinating to someone who's a lifetime athlete that I can lay on the floor and it would look like I'm not moving at all. But after 5 to 10 minutes, all the tension comes out of my body. And this muscle that I've been stretching the shit out of for however long just lays down for me. It's amazing. So that's felt in Christ. And then you may have heard more of like somatic experiencing.
Sure.
Experiencing combined with polyvagal theory. So a very robust understanding of different states of the nervous system, because that's a big part of regulation, is just knowing where you're at and being able to communicate what's going on in your body. And, we use some of the basics with this stuff would be orienting, learning to follow your impulse, learning how to follow your breath without trying to change it. And, like the different organ work and things like that. But it starts with the basics and it kind of builds out, just like an exercise program would start. You're building capacity and more weights and more stuff comes up.
Yeah. Yes. It sounds like I'd say mindfulness is a word that you would be interchangeable with what you're.
Yeah. It's
at least the goal of a lot of this work when you say being connected to your body.
It all starts with awareness.
Right. Okay. So what do you feel that looks like for guys, like to be connected to the body? Because that's not, again, go back to words. That's not words that men, I'd say, would use very often. Like, I have a practice of meditation in the mornings to be connected to my body, or I go out in my backyard and get on the bare ground or whatever it is. You don't hear guys talk about that very often. At least I didn't grow up with men around me that spoke like that told me the importance of doing that. Yeah. Describe for me what that looks like.
Yeah. We can do it right now. I mean, it's kind of what I was saying earlier with the client in the boardroom.
Yep.
And it's learning to feel. Mm-hmm. And I kind of want to go back to the beginning with me. You either come into this work in two ways. You either feel too much. That's me. I felt everything acutely. I could feel, a hair on my head stand up. To my advantage and to my fault as well. I've had to learn not to feel as much. And then you also come in as you're shut down. You're more that functional freeze. And that's I'm living in my head and I'm thinking, and this down here is numb. And so you're going to start in different ways with different people, but one is just going to be orienting, bringing the senses into the moment, feeling our feet on the ground, feeling our butt in the chair, feeling our breath. It's being here now.
Yeah.
So much of our day is spent, thinking of the worst possible thing that could happen, preparing for that, revving up your nervous system. Much of these things that never happen. It's being fearful that something from the past is going to repeat itself.
Right.
And so we're constantly bringing ourselves back to the body to sense what's going on. And eventually we're building a thing called interoception, which is just my ability to sense what's going on in my body, and that comes in handy as we go deeper into this work. So if I was working for someone, I would say, and they said, "Hey, I'm feeling anxious," I would say, "Okay, how do you know that?" They'd say, "Oh, well, I'm really uncomfortable." I'd say, "Okay, where do you feel that at?" And they say, "Oh, well, I don't know. What do you mean?" I'm like, "Well, what's going on with your chest?" "Oh, my chest feels tight. My heart's beating fast. I can't take a deep breath. It's really uncomfortable to sit here." But we have to really slow things down to see that.
Mm-hmm.
They're just like, I feel like shit. What do you mean? And it's like, well, back up. And so it all starts with awareness. And so we would start with, can you feel your butt in your chair? Right. And then eventually, can you follow your impulse? And that one looks more like, this is more my wife. I'm thinking of her. I'm throwing her under the bus on this podcast, but she would be the one that's like, I've been all day at my office chair and I haven't gone to the bathroom, or I didn't eat any food today. And it's because they're focused on whatever they're doing. We're not paying attention to the body at all. So
Right.
I don't know when I need to rest. I don't know when I need to eat. I don't know when I need to drink. It's an urgent thing every time I go to the bathroom because it's got to happen now. Right. And so what we would start by, go to the bathroom when you got to go to the bathroom, eat when you're hungry, drink when you're thirsty. And what the body does, it gets in a pattern of not letting us see these things. It's like, hey, if he's not going to listen, I'm just going to do whatever. And so once we start to pay attention, the body feels more safe and stuff starts to come up.
Yeah, one of the biggest things that I like about what I would call mindfulness and that practice is being so connected to your body, to your own thoughts and feelings, that you can, I would say, get what you want out of every moment. Like, you're not always going to get what you want, but you can at least know what it is and go after it. You know what I mean? Like, you can't control other people. So like, you put a request out into the world, you go after something, you might not get it, but it is far better than being somewhat overwhelmed and then reactive. Because I find that is the default for a lot of folks, especially guys, tends to default to anger. We get very reactive in the moment. We get upset. Like, we're hurt. And we don't really want to talk about that, but we default. Yeah, we don't want to feel anything. Yeah, I was gonna tell you this short story before we got on the call. Well, before we started the conversation here, I mentioned I'm in marketing, and one of my clients, it's a husband-wife psychologist team, and they've been just kind of getting out into the world of social media and putting content out there. And he put up a couple different videos about different feelings. He talked about anger for a few minutes, and it was my job to kind of just make sure he knows how to moderate the comments and just kind of run the ad side of things. And so for a while, I was managing the comments, and I was not surprised by what I saw, but disappointed. I would say at least 50%, definitely probably more than that, but I'll go with 50%. 50% of the guys, because that's what we were targeting, were just basically shitting on what he was saying. Not simply disagreeing because they weren't providing an argument. It wasn't, like, let's have a conversation, let's have a debate. It's just like, oh no, anger's good. If you're not angry every day, there's something wrong with you. If you are feeling hurt, then that's like, you know what I mean? Everything that these guys could say just to basically push this aside. And what he said in the video was so helpful, so informative, so educational. It wasn't really encouragement to do any one specific thing. It was like, here, I'm a psychologist with like 50 plus years of experience, mostly working with men. Let me just teach you something that I find has been very helpful in practice. And I've kind of, it's sad to see that that's the response, when really what we need, or what you and I would want, is for men to think about, let's reflect on the last time that I was angry and what actually went on, and where did I feel that in my body, and what do I even feel now, because I'm probably carrying some of that. So I say all that because I'm curious what your experience has been with that type of feedback, if you've had that. I'm assuming yes at some point, and what you respond with.
Love that question. I always respond with, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, it's a good start.
Number one, nobody makes us feel anything. That's impossible. We feel because we are triggered. Something is unresolved in us, and it's been triggered. And so we feel something, and now we're reacting instead of having so that's really fast, right? I had this guy's talking about anger. Now I am pissed and I am talking shit in a comment group. Like, how did that, right? Well, if we slow that down, Well, no, you just talked about something that triggered me. And so I had this massive feeling, and now he's the bad guy because he's closest. He said the thing, it's his fault because there's no self-awareness or connection to self to see like, oh man, that's my stuff. And that's something that I need to process. Right. And I would also say this on the other side of that, there's also a lot of men with repressed anger that's me. It wasn't allowed in my family unless I was on the football field. And so
right. Specific context.
Yeah. And so I held in this anger, and I'm learning to build capacity on how to let that out without clearing a room and shutting me down. Because when I have so much rage in me from all of that, from not expressing it for 30, 40 years, that if I try to let too much out at one time, it can be overwhelming for my system. And that's a lot of guys. That's a lot of people with chronic fatigue, gut issues. We'll say underneath that healthy aggression, we need that healthy aggression. That also is the main emotion for men is rage and anger, right? So it can go both ways is what I'm trying to demonstrate. But when we learn how to let that anger out in a healthy way, that's when our life force energy comes back. That's when these guys that have chronic fatigue and they're getting walked all over at work, they start setting boundaries and saying no, and they're a different person.
Yeah.
And their energy comes back. So, yeah.
Yeah. Before I let you go, what has been the most impactful practice for you? Like very specific, practical thing that you would do on a daily or weekly basis that has brought the most change for you?
Gosh.
Or even your favorite?
My favorite. Man, I've learned that movement is really good for me. Like movement is medicine for me. And I mean, I'm the guy that CrossFit, all the time. My mental health practice back in the day was stay 4 hours in the gym, and my rest was like do an hour and a half hot yoga session and then go get an ice bath for 10 minutes. That's or add a 24-hour or 72-hour fast into that, right?
I'm feeling trauma in my body right now just from you giving these as exact. That's a lot, man. That's crazy.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
And I used to say, if you got stress, you hit it with more stress. But here's the thing, brother. That's where I felt at home, because that's what my home was growing up, was adrenaline, cortisol, and being on edge. And that's what felt good. I'm like, oh, I can deal with this, put some pressure on me, and I'm good. So what I've learned is this really slow, intentional movement. The best thing I can say would be like Qigong, the Feldenkrais stuff, doing what Irene would call these up-down classes. That's combining Feldenkrais and Qigong. Maybe Tai Chi could be thrown in there as well. You can do yoga without awareness, and you can be competing with the person beside you and get hurt. This is a little bit different. You're paying attention to yourself, and you're moving extremely slowly, which takes a lot of capacity and regulation in the nervous system. And for someone who had so much activation like me that I can't sit still, sitting and laying on the floor or sitting and talking to a therapist, I mean, that's cool, but like, I got to move. And so when I learned that I could bring movement into this healing practice, it's a really good outlet for me. And so now that I can take that awareness and paying attention to my body, and I can take it into the gym, and I can really work with aggression. And that's where I feel safe, and you put 200 pounds on my back, and I get in touch with that anger, and I push it, and it feels great. You use a sound to express myself. I can use the calming afterwards to get back into my body, to regulate, to bring things down. And at nighttime, I'll do it before bed, and I really charge up bring down my bring down the sympathetic, get into a more parasympathetic.
Yep.
And now sleep is better. So that's one that jumps off the top of my head is movement, and very slow movement, very different than pounding the pavement and doing the hardest workout you can.
Yeah. That's a good one, I think, for guys to remember, because I think every dude probably understands the importance of working out and training, and but they probably lean towards heavy weights or CrossFit or whatever it's going to be, but they don't see the other side of that can also bring their systems down, and whether it be yoga or meditative movement. Well, man, I appreciate your time, and I hope you get a lot more guys that are just catching it, having that light bulb moment, and having that transformation that you've seen in your own life. It's a pleasure chatting with you.
Yeah, man. Thank you for the opportunity. Love the work you're doing, and wish you the best.
All right, man. Thanks. It's great to meet you.
You too, brother.
See ya. Thank you for listening. I hope you found some value in this episode. If you have, be sure to share the Ockery podcast with a friend and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. You can find the Ockery on socials at The Ockery and on the web at theockery.com.